Hey, Renee.
Hi, Annette.
Okay, today we're going to talk about traps. Traps that are familiar so that they're a thing that we end up in and go, doggone it, I went that way again, or doggone it, how did I find myself in this situation again? I know better type thing. Traps. We work with some people and it seems like we could see from the outside easily. And we're thinking, what the heck?
Mm-hmm. We see the blinking reverse of the vehicle coming and know that it's get out of the way. But they're not seeing.
Absolutely. And I think even for ourselves, we could end up in those old traps if we're not aware of our blind spots. So I know there's a certain percentage of me that's a people pleaser. I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. I know other people who their people pleaser is a lot higher. It's so high that it takes them into a trap, if that makes sense. And they'll allow themselves to be exposed to thinking in the background, I'm doing this for others. This will make them happy. This is what they're needing. I'm fulfilling this with whatever it is. But meanwhile, their health is going down or they took time away from their own family again, where they were doing it too much type thing. And it just, I'm just using people pleasing as an example of how it could be a blind spot. And if you're not aware that this is where Satan usually wants to trip you up constantly, then doggone it, if you're not going to call it out, if you're not going to say, this is a list of my blind spot areas. And to make a list, to actually make a list. And you're not going to know what your blind spots are, but you could ask others if you got the courage to, that are around you. Say, I'm not going to bite you. I'm not going to shout at you, but can you tell me some, and I'm going to start making a list. At least you could start doing that. I'm going to make a list of things that I know I'm blind to, and I end up in situations that are tough just because I was blind to them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think you call them repetitive traps as well.
Yeah, I know this one woman I work with, and she continuously ends up in a relationship with a man who's married. And it always starts off as she just wants to be friends with them. And they're very friendly as well, but it ends up going further than that, unfortunately. And it's always the same pattern, by the way. And she's blind. I'm telling you, you could say, no, it's not a blind spot. Yes, it is. She always goes into it where she just wants to have friends. And it just seems like those who want to go ahead and take advantage of a situation know that they can go ahead and go further in a relationship with her than she knows that she should go. At that time, they end up having long, deep conversations, getting too familiar with each other, and then it turns into more than that.
It's unfortunate.
But she doesn't see it in the beginning at all. She goes in, she will say over and over again, this is just my friend. This is just my friend. But others who are around can see how this friend is acting with her, and it's sending off red flags for them. Some may even tell her, and she will go ahead and push back and say, no, we're just friends. We're just friends.
Well, when we don't have, sorry, I thought you were, it froze for a second. when you're not recognizing your blind spots as the person who has been caught in that, not that story, but in blind spots, let me clarify that one. We all get caught in those. And when you're not aware of your blind spot and somebody points it out, a defensive reaction can be one of them, for sure.
Absolutely.
where did you get that from? You know, like, I've never seen that. Nobody's ever said that to me before. What are you thinking? You know? So it then becomes another blind spot because we're not even receptive to the truth that's being spoken to us. So it's almost like we need to have a, what do you call it? Not just the sound mind, but a receptiveness when somebody does come to us and mention it. Because I will say, I've had many folks come to me and tell me of blind spots that they've seen in me, and I'm very appreciative of it. But I can't say that I was always receptive at the beginning, because it does hurt, because you think you're doing right, especially if you're a people pleaser. You know, you mentioned that earlier as one of those repetitive things you go back to. If you're a people pleaser, the last thing you want to do is displease a friend, you know, who sees a fault and a concern, and they bring that up to you. So it's the last thing you want to do is disappoint someone then in your imperfection, in your people pleasing. So there's a lot that comes through it.
But if you were to kind of keep a list, keep a list of areas that people have graciously pointed out, and or when you find yourself in that trap, take the time to walk backwards and go back to the beginning. So I'll use this person as an example. Go back to the beginning of when she started that relationship. What flags did she see at all? I am sure there were flags, because everybody else saw him flirting with her, and she was having such a fun time in the relationship. They saw flirting going back. They even told her that they saw flirting going back. She wasn't recognizing that she was flirting back. And because of that, and all these warnings came out, people came up and said, you know, aren't you married? Because it looks like you're flirting with him. That was a red flag. And she said, no, I'm not flirting. We're just really good friends. And they were really good friends. But that really good friends turned into something more. And everybody could see it happening on the outside, but she couldn't see it. But if she was to walk it back from where it's at now, all the way back to there, she'd actually be able to see that God was providing people along her path to let her know, hey, you're walking down that trap again. This is a trap. You're walking towards it. And it's an old one, if that makes sense.
Yes. And what is drawing you to revisit it this time?
Yeah. And I know people pleasers where they'll go ahead and they're trying to please maybe their boss or whatever, but they go so much over and beyond. Instead of a 40-hour week, they're working a 60-hour week. And they're going above and beyond, and their family is suffering without them being present anymore, because their mind is always at the workplace, because they have found somebody else who not only is being fed by them, pleasing them, but they're getting appreciated. And for a people pleaser, to appreciate a people pleaser only makes them do it worse. It's an addictive behavior because they're looking for approval. It is so addictive to them. It's that alcohol that you just keep pouring down their throat. And it's a trap. It's a trap. But if they're able to look at where they end up in the trap at the end, when did it start? Because it started off just fine having that relationship at work. But when were their flags going up? When were there things going off, sirens, like you called it, flashing lights, saying, stop, you're going too far, you know, that type of thing.
That's important. Then what's the next step? So they've made their list.
Okay.
They back up.
Then the what ifs come in. So the what ifs. Well, what if I don't help them out? Then this thing isn't going to work for them, and then the whole program's going to fail. But what if this? What if that? The worry comes in. But you could change that. What if the positive? So if, let's say, your boss was saying, you know, there's nobody else to do this. I know you've already put in your full week and everything, that type of thing. And your family has a camping trip planned. And if you don't do it, it's not going to work out as well, or whatever it is. That's the way it's being played to you.
Yeah.
And they need you.
Don't meet the deadline.
They need you, which makes you feel even better. A people pleaser wants to feel needed. And so all of that is going on. And you got to tell your family, you know, you guys go, I'm going to catch up to you on Saturday. I can't go on Friday, but I'll catch up with you guys on Saturday, because you let the what ifs worry. But if you would have flipped it and looked at the positives, if I don't go, what's going to happen? He might find somebody new to fill that spot that could do a better job than you, since you were never trained on doing that anyways. Or you could, what would be the positive, as in suggesting, this is a creative way to solve this, but it isn't going to be me missing my trip with my family. Flip it to the positive. And if you can't see the positive, ask others for the positive, because I'm telling you, there are so many people that can look at the positive of the situation, where a person like me, I usually look at the negative, but I know I could find people like my husband or you who will go ahead and say, well, this is the positive of it. And I'll go, it is, but I couldn't see it. So the what ifs would be the next thing.
I think that's a great, I'm sitting here smiling because you're talking about me. My repetitive trap is the people pleasing. And it's typically when it comes down to serving somebody on a project, either at a job or family that needs babysitting or whatever, you know, somebody that needs a service. Oh, I can serve. That's something I'm good at. I could do that with my abilities, you know. And I have found myself doing that negative what ifs. Well, what if I don't? Here's all these things that are going to happen, you know, so I have to, I should. So to hear that we need to flip it to the what ifs of the positive, that's really helpful, I think. But that's going to have to take some
practice. It takes practice.
Yeah. It's going to have to take effort first to write the blind spots, and then to ask somebody else for their opinion. And I'm grateful for those that just speak it into my life where I don't have to go seeking it. But there are times where we do need to seek it because we are missing it. But to be able to look at the positive of the what ifs, typically that can be in itself the hardest part, because thinking positive can be difficult.
Yeah, especially when you're on the other end of the worry part. Yeah. You're too far on the other end of the spectrum is the problem. When there's positive and the negative, you're too far over into the worry.
Yeah. Or thinking you have to solve it. You're always the one that has
right. And in the case of the woman with the just wanting to have a friendship with this man, the worry was, well, if she's not there for him when he comes to work, who's he going to be able to tell his troubles to? Who's he going to be able to share all these things with? And she wasn't going to the positive. She was the worry and the concern for this guy. Well, God could provide somebody else as well. Then comes the
imagine the practicing of the positives, though. For those of us that come out of abuse, we look at that was our life. It was worry, it was concern. We never knew when things were going to go down. You know, we were always in that turmoil state.
Yeah.
Now that we're not in that turmoil state, to have the freedom to choose positive, it's still almost like against our nature. So it's like something we have to learn and practice, like you're saying. But imagine the possibilities if we start looking at the positives, the things we could come up with, who else we could come up with that could be part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a ripple effect as well, looking at the positives and taking yourself out of the picture, such as the people pleasing. I have found that to be true in this season of my life when I have stepped back and chosen not to be the people pleaser in everything of my life. I'm seeing the ripple effects of, oh, so now they're making these decisions, or oh, now this person's coming in. Like it's a more richer fulfillment in other people's lives than Renee just being there solving it.
Being the
Is what
savior.
yeah, I don't need to be the savior.
Go
I'm
figure.
not the one and done girl, you know, that used to be what my thinking was. I'm seeing the benefits of seeing the positives and acting on the positives now. But that was not always the case. I'm just saying, people. And I'm still learning.
We all are.
So what other points?
Self-depreciation. So sometimes you end up in that trap, but you just keep pedaling in the mud and you're going nowhere because you want to go ahead and tear yourself down because you ended up there. So it's hard to get out, if that makes sense. And so you just start beating yourself up. But actually, if you realize that you're in this bad place, by the way, it could be a lot worse. So since it could be a lot worse, you're in a good place. You realized you're in that trap. Get off the bike. Do what you got to do. Get out of that mud. But you don't need to beat yourself up because it only adds pounds and pounds of pressure on top of you.
An example.
Realize that positive. You realized you're in a trap.
Yeah. I think what comes to mind for me is a friend that has chosen to go back to school and then needs childcare, needs childcare for a little one. And yeah, she's in a muddy place right now because the person that she keeps asking to do the childcare is not doing a great job. We're just going to say that. Making it worse for her without going into all the details, making it worse for her. And now that's adding more stress to her plate. And she's feeling like, why do I keep depending on this same person? She's feeling like she can only go to this person. And she's not seeing her positives. She's not seeing her other options.
And sometimes you got to reach out. Other people will reach in and they're willing to get a little muddy as you go ahead and reach out with your muddy hand and they pull you out. But you got to go ahead and do some pushing with your feet and climbing up on that wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's in the dirty mud right now, thinking of maybe I need to leave this semester. It's like, no, you got some more. The successes that she's gotten herself into have been so good. And so though that one relationship is not a healthy one, get rid of them. Get somebody else in there.
But don't beat yourself up continually.
Right.
That's that self-depreciation part. Yes.
I keep hearing that.
Yeah. And the last part, just in general, if we're talking reoccurring traps, is where do I usually fall short? Admitting your shortcomings, being humble. What are your shortcomings? You know what, Renee? I don't paint well and I don't draw well, but I'm really good at stick people. Okay?
Really good at what?
Stick people? Yeah, very good. My quality of stick people is really good. Yeah, you ask my granddaughter Gracie, and she will tell you my stick people are top of the line. Yeah, but I know I fall short there. I just don't have the giftedness for that. When it comes to patience, at times for certain things, I could be incredibly patient, and other things I fall short. I fall short, especially if I'm tight on time and I just want to reach in there and grab it and do it myself, when I need to just breathe and let the person finish, that type of situation. So knowing where I fall short is important so that I will safeguard against easily slipping into the muddy slope and falling into the old traps that could be just waiting for me.
Makes sense. And then knowing that, makes you kind of walk around the hole instead of right through it.
So for a people pleaser, it might be a brand new relationship because people pleasing and they want to have a good relationship start or whatever it is. And or if they have a relationship with somebody, they really want it to grow better and they really want it to be more than what it is right now, you will find that people pleasers will, that's a trap. They got to know this is where they usually will fall short. They will do things that they don't normally do. They will say, yeah, go ahead and this, it will be fine this time, that type of thing. When they wouldn't have that with people like Renee, you know me, you wouldn't take it, you would say, no, Annette, we're going to hold off on that, but you won't say it to this person because your relationship isn't so strong and you want it stronger. And so you go ahead and you compromise and you end up in the trap. So just to watch that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the things that I would watch for. I know I try to watch that as well and really listen when people are willing to say, this is a blind spot for you, I think. You're not seeing, boy, if you got people like that in your life, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
And we're not talking about the people that are your naysayers or the ones that are just always ranting on you and tearing you down. That's not what we're saying. We're saying an iron sharpening iron kind of friend who is the encourager.
Yes.
Check it in with the Lord. And they are doing this to edify you, doing this to help you grow. They're not doing it to put you down or because I need to educate you attitude. Because there's some out there as well. Well, I just learned this at counseling and you got to do this. You're not looking for that.
You're not looking for that at all. Hello.
Yeah. It's somebody that's going to edify you and be your iron sharpening iron for sure.
And you know, God knows us so well. And I believe he does put up those red flags by people, by situations for us to recognize, like you say. But I also know that Satan studies us and knows us so well. And so he will go ahead and say, oh, this is a great trap for her. And go ahead and move forward with that as well. We need to know in our brain, in our souls, who's the author of that. Now it's up to us if we want to go ahead and join in and go along with that and ignore the red flags when God is saying, mm-mm.
And red flags can even include what's coming to mind are just lies. Red flags can just be lies being spoken to you. This is a good thing. You know you can trust them. What comes to mind is in my people pleasing, I was even making a choice with Eddie to purchase a house. And instead of listening to the flags, it was, well, I don't want to let this friend down who's selling us this house. So I should have listened to the lies I was hearing. I was hearing lies of being convinced that we had to do this, that this was going to save us money, this was going to solve this, all these reasons. But the flags were going off from Jesus. I'm just telling y'all, the flags were going off. But my motive to continue, it was, well, I don't want to let that person down. He said he could help us. But we weren't getting the Jesus clearing on it. So, yeah. And we had friends point out those blind spots as well around that situation.
Well, that's good.
Praise God. Yeah. Lesson was learned.
All right. So that's just a little bit about traps and trying to avoid them. And I know there's so many other ways. And if you have a way or an idea to share, please post it below. Renee and I would love to read it.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Talk to you later, Renee.
Bye.